uh, welcome once, welcome twice. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Good evening. It's the Crypt Master from Tales from the Crypt. Cause it ain't really like that, but sometimes it feel like that, man. What's going on? It's Mr. Ogunlana, and I'm checking back in with you. Tuesday, October 31st, 2017. For all of my people out there celebrating, the coming of the fall of All Souls Eve, or, the day when we celebrate our ancestors. Happy Ancestor Day for all those who celebrating Halloween Day. I guess I'm not gonna say happy Halloween. Let me just jump straight to it, man. So I spent some time with my son today. I love that. As a matter of fact, today Tuesday, got another opportunity to really show some love to my son today and spend some time with him. Today was a warmer day. This is in Atlanta, so much warmer today. So, we went to the park, and that was beautiful. He slept for a bit today. During his nap, I took some time to go over my be, do, and have list, because I have been thinking about my goal list. I've been listening to Goal Setting 13 Keys Secrets to Success, and that book, and I got the audio book, as a matter of fact, and that audio book is really good. It really helped in getting me back to my list and giving me a few principles to look at in terms of creating my list and moving forward with my list. So today I spent some time looking at my list, and I actually made another list. I find myself every so often just kind of making up another be, have, do list. And that's, I think that's healthy, because apparently the list that I had prior to the ones that after I remake it, either it wasn't exciting to me, or it wasn't clear enough for me, or I just didn't have enough information about it. And so in any event, I spent some time looking at it and thinking about it, because I realized that I am in a new phase right now, and I've been working on letting go. So if you've been listening to me to date, and I'm still thinking about how many of my previous tapes I want to put out there, if I want to start it on my most recent tape, or if I want to just kind of go all the way back, because I got a few months worth of tapes, but some of them were not as positive as I'm making a point to be. So I may not put all of them on there, although they are hilarious. I will say that, and they are real. So in any case, been dealing with today, the main theme today has been letting go of just either past doubt, past, sadnesses, things that, and just working on forgiveness, first of myself, working on forgiveness in terms of, some of the people who I felt that have done me wrong, or have taken things from me. I'm still getting over this strep. I feel better today. But I still, today I sound, I'm trying to remember what's that guy's name who has like a really crackly voice, white boy, blonde hair. Anyway, man. But anyway, so been really working on like forgiveness and letting go, because I realized that there have been a lot of thoughts that I have held on to that have done more to distract me and have done more to damage my running for future opportunity, because of my preoccupation with the past. And I spent just a lot of time just kind of dealing with that. And one way that I dealt with that, because I've been going through like various stages of grieving and letting go, because there's been so many things. And for all of my freelancers, especially if you're single parents and you're freelancers, it's just so many things, so many ways to be let down, so to speak, if you don't manage your own expectations and get organized. And and if you're just starting like myself, it's just so many. I have so many. I think that I've been doing, and I'll say this is another part of who I am that, I'll take a little bit of time to kind of describe. I've been doing software development since about 2000, like really and truly, I want to say probably since, like 2005. 2000, because I graduated high school 2004. So, and I was well into, at least 2 years before that. So maybe 2001, 2002, I had started doing software development, really and truly, like VB.net. Then moved into like ASP, into, .NET, C#, JavaScript, and the whole, I branched out from there. So I did it well through college. And I've been doing it since. And I've, so probably for the first 10 years, because I'm thinking it's 2017 right now. So that's 16 years of experience. Holy smokes, man. That's a lot of time. Wow, it's just dawned on me how long I've actually, and that's like almost half my life. I'm only 31. And yeah, that's intense. And so for about the past, like really truly, at least the last 15 to 16 years, I have been doing software development, and it had just dawned on me how long that's been, man. That is a long time. And I want to say maybe like the first 10 years of my career was like a series of, it was like a roller coaster ride. It was like a roller coaster ride. And today is quote unquote Halloween. So I use this. It was like a, Fright Night at Six Flags on, the Ninja, and the Georgia Cyclone, for all those people who've ridden the Ninja and the Georgia Cyclone, that when you get off of the Ninja, you're gonna have a headache because that thing rocks you the whole time. It's a fun ride, but it will rock your socks off. So I say that to say that it has been one of those rides. I started out working, the very first, how about that? We'll just talk about a little bit of my history. Why not? We're talking about letting go, so we'll go ahead and put it on this tape. And so shout out to all of the people who started out with me who might be listening to this, because you about to get called out. Not by name, but you definitely about to get called out. So yeah, I started out, doing a series of competitions in high school, which is how I met. It's essentially how I started like my first networking. Like if I think like how I started networking, I started off doing competitions. You know, started off doing competitions, competing. And I think it was called the NAACP AXO competition. Not sure if that competition is still happening, but if it is, and if you're a freelancer and you have children, and if you have children in high, especially if they're African American, or of African descent rather, they should be participating in the NAACP AXO competition if it's still happening in your area. I started doing the NAACP AXO competition, and actually I ended up getting hated on. I met a guy who had an existing software company who actually had another guy in his family that was his primary mentor. And they had like this healthcare company, and they had an existing company that I had got introduced to by a young lady who was our sponsor for the NAACP AXO competition. And so enter, this group of people, gentlemen, I'll say that, says I'm not going to say their name, especially not the individual that, is responsible for this other part that I'm getting to here shortly. So anyway, I got hated on real bad. The piece of software that I did was like really righteous. It was really good, and I learned a lot. They definitely taught me a whole lot. And so, but I didn't rank. I won like all of my, state competitions. On the national level, didn't rank because I had like I'll say it this way, I had people from they had like judges from MIT, Princeton, all of these quote unquote what's the name for these schools, upper echelon schools, and these were black folks, Negroes. I'll say that. And they hated on my design because it was pretty straightforward. It was using the Microsoft technology, and it really got the job done or whatever. And so what I will say is, so I got hated on, and that's fine. And then I ended up doing another competition called Blacks in Government. So again, freelancers, if you have students or children that's in high school, and there should be programs, competitions. I guess the moral to what I'm saying right now is involve your children in programming in some way, because this really is the future. And you know it because you're a freelancer. But you should definitely, your children should at least be, especially if they have the gift, so to speak, and interest, I should say. There should be technology competitions all in your area. Look online, NAACP AXO. If you're in Atlanta, look up, the Startup Village, Tech Village, after school programs. There should be something for them, because that's what I did when I was 10th through 12th grade. A whole bunch of those programs. So to make a long story short, I lost every national competition until I was in the 12th grade. And I think I started competing from 10th grade to the 12th. And so for 2 years straight, I lost every competition on the national level. I was killing on the local level. And every time I got on national level, failed completely. But it wasn't until my 12th grade year when I went to Washington, D.C. with this organization called Blacks in Government that I actually won the competition. So why is all of this important? I say all that to say that really put me ahead of the game. That really did. And so when I graduated from high school, I ended up going to, because at the same time I was taking the SAT, and I didn't really get any like tutoring or anything. I just studied on my own. I think I got like 1,000 or something. And back in those days, I think the highest score you could have made is like a 1,600. I think I made like either 1,000 or 1,100 on my own, just taking it by myself. So I ended up going to Southern Polytechnic State University. It's no longer called that. It's called Kennesaw State here in Marietta. Went there, majored in information technology, and at the same time I was working. And, so I was doing off and on software projects, and I was doing, I got really involved in what was known as Young Life at the time, which is this ministry for high school students. And, you know, I'm not really going to get into that here on this because I don't want to dig too much into it, but it exposed me to, I should say, another form of politics that, I would say it really distracted me, in my studies, even in college. It just distracted me. My whole, work in missionary work and all that, I was really distracted because at the same time I was always like this truth seeker, quietly searching for the truth. And I'm just trying to figure out how PC I want to be on this and how deep I want to get into this. But anyway, so that's what I ended up doing. So I spent a lot of time doing that, being distracted with Young Life. And I went to Africa once, and that was cool. I got a lot of exposure. I'll say that. That was one positive thing that I got from Young Life. I had a lot of exposure. Went out of the country, I think, like the first time. I went to Africa the first and to date the only time, which is unfortunate. I need to make another trip to Africa just on the strength of that. And side note, if you're of African descent, if you've never been to Africa, shame on you. Go to Africa, not just because it's the motherland, but because, it's from whence we've come, and if you're of African descent, it just makes the most sense to just go to see and not believe what the hype is about that place. But anyway, because even then, when I was kind of under the religiosity that I was under, I still felt a presence in that place that it's still calling my name to this day. So anyway, so I did that. So by the time I graduated from college, I got an offer from the same guy who helped me while I was in high school on those programs. And so the overarching theme is forgiveness and letting go. So this is where we're going with this. So I ended up working with this guy, and it was great, And here's what I'll say: I graduated in 2008, so I did it. So there was probably a intermittent. I was being really intermittent. I did a 4-year degree in information technology. So if you want to count those 2 years. Right, and then maybe 2 years while I was in high school, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, right? So that's 3 years, and then let's just count 4 years, and then plus from 2008 till now, right? Because that's really how long that I've actually been doing development work, which is still a long time, because that's almost 10 years plus 5. That's almost. That's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years. So it's still a long time, man. But anyway, so I ended up going into business with this guy. I'm not going to say the person's name, nor am I going to say the company, just because, if this person ended up listening, if he listens to this, he knows who he is. So I ended up doing business with them, and so I ended up getting a lot of exposure, even with that business too. I will say that guy put me on all the way, plugged me all the way in. I remember the first conversation we had, and I guess I should have took this seriously when I had this conversation, but I was so naive at the time. But I remember going to lunch, and he was like, "I'm about to plug you in." That's what he said. And he was like, "You about to get plugged in, and you about to get plugged into the socket. And this is, congratulations. This is," and I did not think we was at Chick-fil-A, because that was his favorite spot or whatever, because he was like this, supposed to be like vegan or whatever, vegetarian, I should say. And he was like, I'm about to put you all the way on. And I was like, cool, go on, put me on then, brother. So, I think my first gig that I had with him was at this place called, it was like this telephone, just like this It was like a company out in Powder Springs, like Marietta, and they had like, we were doing like software for chicken coops, and that was my very first gig, and so I did that, and so it was cool. He put me. I was made the chief technical officer of that business, straight out of college, not knowing, much about business and the game of software business, especially the game as it relates to the software business. I didn't know much about it. And so he just kind of dunked me into the deep end of the pool, as it were. And so he taught me a whole lot, exposed me to a whole bunch, man. I was just kind of like a kid in a candy store. And so, I got introduced to just the politics of it all. I got, and really when the kind of position that I had, it was really like a contractor position. And I think I started out making like $35 an hour, just contracting straight out of college. Now, I didn't see the game, as it were, I'll use that terminology, and to describe how I was played is, I wasn't paid $35 an hour. I charged, he gave me enough enough, it's a Yoruba word, actually. It means power, but he gave me enough power to see how much he was billing for me, but I didn't see that. I only made like $35,000 a year or whatever. And I think I made that on the dot. And I did that for a couple years, like maybe 2 or 3 years. At the time, and here's the thing. And so before I get into how I did, I want to get into like what the stuff that I know now about it that I should have, not necessarily should have, but just what I learned about, doing business in that way. Is like, first of all, you got to have a plan. Because if you don't, and this is for all freelancers that's listening to this, especially if you got children and you just starting to freelance, you got to have a plan, because if you don't, this is you talking about sharks, lions, tigers, and bears. And this individual that I was dealing with was a lion, tiger, and a bear at the same time. So anyway, and I didn't know what I was getting, and I didn't really know my worth either. And that's another thing. So again, you have to know your worth. What is your value? And know what you know what you bringing to the whole table, man. Because if you don't, people will take advantage. And so this brother, and I think about it. Now, I came out of college with a BA in Infotech. And this was at the time the latest and greatest. And this was at a school that was known to compete with Georgia Tech. And, I started off, pretty much doing most of the work for his business for $35,000 a year. And that's a hell of a good deal for him. And I thought I was winning. He plugged me into the game and he gave me insight. He showed me how to be an entrepreneur. And I ended up actually learning much more about it. It's a lot more that he didn't teach me that wasn't said that I learned just through, body language, just through how he carried himself, how he carried his business, the whole thing. So, we ended up doing a lot of business for a lot of people while I was at his company. There was, a not-for-profit in Atlanta. And I will call their names because I love those people. Hosea Feed the Hungry. I love Miss Omalami. And their whole team. They're some very good people. And so I ended up developing their first volunteer management system. They don't still use that for a very obvious reason, because the person that I'm speaking of, the company that I used to work for, he did a lot of very sketchy things for a lot of on a lot of organizations, such as Hosea Feed the Hungry. But anyway, we did so many projects. We did so many projects and I got so much experience with so many different technologies. It was damn near worth getting played almost. And I will say it was almost worth it, man. You know, so, and what was interesting is so that was the good part. And I think that happened for like the first 2 years that happened. And then like, going towards maybe the third, fourth year, that's when things really started to get bad. You know, cue the creepy music. You understand? And so that's when it really got creepy or whatever. One moment. I'm getting a text message. I want to make sure I respond. And so, let me see. So yes, sorry about that. And so I did that. And so I think the third or fourth year started to get really creepy. And so, I think it started to really get bad because he had a lot of tax IRS issues, and he had, he had some baby mama drama, and he, there was a lot of things in his personal life that happened that really turned everything upside down. I'll say that and it happened when I went and I worked. And this is when I was still working for his company. And I ended up taking a project. And this was at a time when there was just no money available. It seemed like there was no projects out, and it seemed like I was the only person that could land the project. And so I ended up landing a project out in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at Direct Auto Insurance. And at that time, let's see, is they're coming by me with those loud sirens? No, great. So I ended up going out there, and that was a very difficult assignment, and I'll tell you why. It was a difficult assignment because at the time, I literally, all of the money that I was making, I think it was like $45 an hour, I basically didn't see any of it. It paid for my bare necessities to work that project, and I literally was paying the company everything on that project, and the company was taking all of the money and using it for other things. And so I literally was living off of a bag of rice and a bag of apples a week, and that is not an exaggeration. The only thing that I had daily that I made sure I saved up my own money to get was a bottle of wine and a cheap Swisher Sweet cigar. One of those what do you call those things? It's not the small Swisher Sweets, it's the actual cigar type, and it's called Perfecto. That's what it's called. And this is when I used to smoke cigars heavily. And I smoked me one of those Perfecto Swisher Sweet cigars, and I found like this $8 bottle of wine at the local liquor store that I found was like $5. It was between like $5 and $8 a day. And I would go and get me one of those dang on bottles of wine, one of those cigars, and sit on the floor because I ain't have no furniture in that doggone place. So every day I get up, go to work all day, go to the house, sit, drink all of the doggone wine I could drink, smoke all of that cigar I could smoke, and pass out to the next day. That's how difficult that project was. I didn't know anybody out there. It was the straight country, and I was doing it only for the money. That was a very difficult very, very difficult project. And I'm just sitting back thinking about it. Like, I did that project, and I was like, man, that was probably like one of the toughest things that I did, period. It's like one of the toughest times because I had no money. I really didn't, I didn't have any money to eat, really anything, it was just rice. I had me some rice, little apples, some eggs, you understand, and that was it, and that wine. So needless to say, I gained so much weight on that project. That was ridiculous, man. And I did that for like a year, I think. And I don't know if he couldn't get a project. See, here's how this is where I started to get quote unquote played. Because I don't know if he could really get a project or if he wasn't trying to get one because, I was just kind of sending the money, right? Because it wasn't any checks and balances because I'm being naive. I was just so happy to get a job, working for a black company or whatever. And I didn't double check anything. And so that's what happened. I was up there getting drunk every day, programming software. And so some freelancers be like, hey, that wasn't a bad thing, but oh boy, it gets worse. So I ended up having to leave that project because, he basically called me back to Atlanta, and because it ended up getting worse out for him. I think he ended up, the baby mama drama turned up to the 10th degree for him. He had a lot of reasons and excuses. I'll say that. I don't know if the baby mama drama turned up or not. What I will say is the brother had a lot of excuses. And he always needed money or whatever. And if he listened to this, I'm sure he probably laughing. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man. So I ended up going back into Atlanta, man. And again, it was just me working or whatever, man. I was really, the only one bringing the money in or whatever. And I took project after project. I think I did that project, and then I did, there was another project I ended up working on for, I was about to work on a CDC project in Atlanta at the time, and then I ended up going to work on the Project Liaison, which is a company, it's like this big data company out in Alpharetta. And, he, interviewed for it and didn't get it. I interviewed for it and got it. And then I brought him back on. It was another white guy that was on the project who started, but he ended up, basically through so many moves, he ended up leaving and I ended up bringing my guy in. So to make a long story short, he ended up losing that gig, because at that time I had enough, because there were so many other projects that we had did, and I was just bringing so much money in, it wasn't seeing anything. I was still making 35 G's a year, which was like pennies in comparison to the money that I was bringing in. Just looking at my calculator now, one moment. Just looking, I'm just going to do a brief calculation just to see, because I think at the time I was making which way? At the time, I think I was making maybe 50, 40 times 4, that's about a crisp $8,000 a month, a month, and I was only really seeing 1,000 of it, and I was making all the money for the organization or whatever. And, there was really no accountability with what he was doing with the money. I know what I will say is we was going to the strip club a lot. Yeah, I'm saying it. We went to the strip club a lot. I know he wasted a lot of money on drinks and booze and parties. Having a good time or whatever. But I don't even really think he had an ideal, really, truly, like, long-term strategy on what he wanted to do with the dough or whatever. So, it was the blind leading the blind. And so, what ended up happening is on the Liaison project, there was something that happened to him. I think he ended up going to jail. I think he ended up going to jail or something like that, and he needed some money, or he was about to go to jail, and he needed maybe $10,000 or some foolish amount of money like that. And that was, because I was working for my budget, basically, in the company. And, he basically took the $10,000 on the promise that he was going to pay me back. Now, he might try to deny this, but I have no reason to lie. You know what I'm saying? I don't have any reason to lie. And, and this is 2017. This happened back, I want to say in 2010 to 2011. So this is almost 7-8 years. So if if I wanted to lie about something, why would I lie about it 7 years straight? But anyway, man, it was way more than $10,000 that he owed me, but because it was credit cards and stuff like that in my name too. But anyway, I really got played, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, the straw that broke the camel's back was he borrowed a lump sum of money from me, and he didn't pay it back. And he just did not make any attempt to try to pay it back. And then he started getting really harsh in terms of his, verbally and his diction or whatever, and I just had enough. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up just leaving the company, while we were on a project, because I was letting them know that he wasn't paying me, because he wasn't. I was basically giving all of the dough to him, and he was supposed to be doling some of it out, and he wasn't. So I just straight up told the client, hey, he's not paying me. If y'all want me to work this project, y'all need to make this happen. Y'all need to pay me. So he ended up losing the project. They ended up going with me, and I finally started to get paid. And now what I could have done, because at the time I had his cars, it was this older, BMW, and I had access to the office space and all that. I could have did some real foul stuff, but I didn't. I gave the brother his car back. I didn't take any files. I didn't do anything, man. You know what I mean? Because, I still have a good heart. And so, I just left him alone or whatever. And, and so this happened over the course of, I think he was stole, man. I think the actual amount, man, it was some foolish amount of money, man. It was $15,000, $16,000, some crazy number like that, man. After I had added it all up or whatever, man, and over the course of a year and a half, 2 years or something like that. And, and so that was the price that I paid for staying in that situation too long with no plan. It was obvious that I had outgrew him in terms of my knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of software in general. I was getting paid more. I was just a new kid on the block, man, and I was getting shown a lot of love, and I think there was some envy in there too. You know what I mean? And it was just bad, you know what I'm saying? And so I and I think where I am right now, and I can just kind of look at it, and the reason I brought this whole thing up in terms of just kind of letting it go and forgiveness is because, not to say that I forgive the money or whatever, I forgot the money that he owed me, but you know what, man, I'm letting it go, just kind of once and for all, man, just kind of letting the whole thing go. And I just want to say, if he's listening to this, I appreciate everything that you taught me. You know, because I'm able to eat still in 2017, you know, and, you know, you taught me a lot about the good in the software game, and you taught me about the bad in the software game. And you're the reason why I have decided to master this software game, as it were. You know, I'm 31 years old, and I am really doing some incredible things in software. And, you know, had it not been for that experience, I don't think that I would have been would be as successful as I am today. And so, you know, I just want to say thank you. You know, wherever you are, and you know who you are. And it ain't just that dude who I was doing business with. There's so many people out there who do unscrupulous practices, who do things in the dark, who, you know, for whatever reason, you know, just don't deal on the up and up. And I have held on to that part of my software history long enough. I've actually written about it, bits and pieces about it in some of the books that I've written. And, you know, I just wanted to kind of put it on here so that for all of the people that listen, if anybody listens, especially this early in these tapes, that, you know, I have some major league experience with some unscrupulous practitioners. And you know, this is why, you know, when I say I'm in it for the longevity, you know, I understand the significance of honesty. Because I think that's, you know, and I'm looking at, like, what were some of the things that lacked in our relationship with each other, you know, myself and this brother, which is why we're not in business today, is honesty, you know. And for whatever reason why he needed to borrow the money from me and why he couldn't pay it back, there is just no excuse for being dishonest. Especially, you know, if you know, if I am working and I'm providing essentially the means, the food, the water, the shelter, security for him and his children, there's just no need to be dishonest. So, you know, that's why I can let it go. And I wanted to share it with you all just so that you know that I have actually, you know, in this 15 years, you know, and that's not the only one. I have, and through him, I've met some other, you know, unscrupulous, you know, people, you know, but all in all, I learned a whole lot. And, you know, I learned, and I guess in any event, if I didn't learn anything, I learned what not to do. And I appreciate that. And so, you know, that's gone into making me to be the software expert that I am today. And once again, I have so much, I'm just appreciative of it, because that was like the real college, you know, because when I was in college, I didn't really go to class. I just went to class only to take the test, and they hated it. My professors hated that because I was a student too, and they didn't like it because I was already doing software development. And so, you know, the real college that I was in was when I was working for this person, and, you know, I saw a whole lot. And so just wanted to take some time to really just put that finally on the record, so that, you know, for all of the people who were interested, you know, there it is. Like always, I'm going to tell you, like my father always told me, and this is me to me in the future, you know, hold your head way up. Until next time.